One of the things that we get so caught up in doing as a musician is reading notes and rhythms. But we seem to forget that just as important as the notes are, so too are the silences. Music being a combination of sound and silence, we find that there are symbols that equate to each sound that are rests. So for example, the whole note rest, 4 beats of rest here, it hangs down from that fourth line. I always remembered as a child that it was so big and so heavy that it went floop and hung down from the fourth line. The half note rest, not quite as heavy, so it kind of sits on the third line like a top hat. The quarter note rest kind of looks like a lightning bolt or a zigzag. The eighth note rest, worth half a beat of silence, is something that kind of looks like a 7 or an apostrophe kind of thing. And then the 16th note rest has, just as the 16th note has 2 little beams across the top, the 16th note rest has 2 of those, kind of like modifying an 8th note rest. Okay? Music being a combination of sound and silence, when we use our 1E and a rhythmic counting system to subdivide or count out a measure to figure out when we sing and when we don't, when we have notes, when we have rests, that all works out using the 1E and a system, but it's important to understand these values. So let's take a quick look at an example, and I'm just going to kind of throw this up here. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to write just yet. We'll find out. Let's throw a quarter note here and an 8th note rest, followed by 2 16th notes. Oh my goodness. And followed by a half note, and followed then by a quarter note rest. And let's do 4 16th notes. We'll do those guys right in here. So we'll put them there. And then we'll do an 8th note rest and an 8th note. And then we'll do a quarter note. Now you'll notice something. That looks like a whole lot of mishmash. What I need in there, and I did this with the planning in mind, I need a bar line or a measure line. So now it looks much more like 2 measures of music. When we break down the rhythmic values, we'll use our counting system. We know a quarter note is worth 1 beat. So this 8th note rest starts on beat 2, and the anda, that's these guys right here. All right, the way we get that broken out, and then the half note's worth 3. Yes, we have 4 beats in that measure. Let's go to the next measure. Quarter note rest worth 1 beat. Now we have 4 16th notes. They're going to start on beat 2, 2, E, and A. 8th note rest, that's got to start on beat 3, because I've already used up all this space. But since it's only an 8th note, we need an and. There it is. 3 and. And then here's beat 4. So if I were to clap this, 1, 2, and a 3, and 4, 1, 2, E, and a 3, and 4. If I were to sing it, la, la la la, la 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 la, la la. Not the most exciting melody, but you get the idea. 1, 2, and a 3, 4. 1, 2, E, and 4. And again, my pulse or my steady beat goes throughout my song, throughout whatever song. Now it could be this fast. That's a function of tempo. We're not worried about tempo. When we're learning new concepts, we like to slow things down. So if I establish my metronome or my steady beat, 1 and a 3, 4, 2 E and 4. Now you'll notice I didn't say that rest. Didn't say that rest, didn't say that. Listen again. 1 and a 3, 4, 2 E and 4. I did say it, but I whispered the 3 right there. Sometimes I'll whisper those because I want to know that there is space or a rest there. This is very sophisticated counting, Generally, your music doesn't get too much more difficult than that. But it's good to see how complex it can be, but also how the one-eanda system can break things down. Now, there's one more thing I want to show you here. With our 16th notes, and it's very easy for students to get confused with this. If we take 4 16th notes, and we say, let's just say for the sake of argument that these guys are on beat 1 of a measure, I'm going to put in 1, E, and Okay? Now I can, rhythmically though, I could write just the first 3 notes. I could write just 3/16, right? And I could put in a little 16th note rest guy there. Okay? I could do the second set of 16ths. Okay, so this would be 1 E and. This would be E and A. I could also do 2 16ths. I could do the first 2 16ths. Now, instead of writing 2 16th note rests, I'm going to be tricky. I'm going to use just an 8th note rest because that occupies the same space. I could do 2 16ths on the anda and then put a 8th note rest in the beginning. I could put 2 16ths in the middle on the E-and, excuse me. Now in that case, I do have to write a 16th note rest before and a 16th note rest behind it. One last thing I could do, I could write a 16th note on 1 and a 16th note on okay? And what I could do with those guys is I'm going to beam them individually, with those little double beams in there. I could put an 8th note rest in the middle, but for the sake of clarity, I'm actually going to put in those 2 16ths so we can see how it goes. So when we start to get to these two, 1 E, these guys would be anda, anda, anda. This would be E and, E and, E and, E and. And these would be what and 1 E and It's all kinds of crazy ways to rhythmically subdivide all types of rhythms. 16th notes are generally the most challenging, complicated rhythmic patterns that we get to in our middle school music. So there's kind of a mathematical quality to this, and while I'm not always the greatest mathematician in the world, this math I understand. Because again, this is 1 beat of music. It's just 1 beat. 1 E and A. The rest of my song is going to have 2 E and A, 3 E and A, 4 E and A, 1 E and A, you know, going on and on and on. But this is just one way. We might call this a rhythmic matrix. It shows all the variations or permutations of 16ths. Now, if you're really, really smart, you'll know that's not completely true. Because I could go back and do, whereas here I did 3, here I did 2 and 2 and 2, I could just do an 8th note on 1, on E, on and, or on in the course of a rhythmic line, a melodic line. I'm not showing that to you right now, but if you were thinking about that, you are a very smart person. If you weren't thinking about it, that's okay. Most of us don't quite think that deeply, that's okay. Unless you're really into math, you might have figured that out. So, a little bit about very focused rhythmic subdivision of 16th notes.